Hello and good morning. Now, when it comes to actually learning and education, personally, I think in 2026, a lot has changed. Everybody now seems to be so focused on the internet and what this sort of virtual bibliography has to offer society. But when I actually speak to my own children and to other people's children, and I explain to them that I'm 43 years old, and when I was at school, the internet didn't exist, or it was literally in its, not even its infancy stage. I would say, if you were going to describe it as a child, it was not even a fetus. It was literally, here's the sperm, here's the egg, hi, nice to meet you, let's see if we can make a baby. And that is how it had been for a number of years. And now all of a sudden, everything's AI this, AI that. It was purely used when it first opened up for military, for medical research, for civil servants to use, public services to use. It was not always accessible and readily available to the general public like it is today. So I'm very old school. And when I want to know anything or learn anything or even try and teach my children anything, I'm not saying the internet is not a fantastic tool for these things. However, before the internet existed, the only way people would learn anything was through generation to generation to generation, passing on their skills and their tools and everything that they knew themselves about how to live within society, how to survive within society, how to have a job. I wouldn't say a career, it was a job. So again, if you were going to be a doctor or you were going to be a lawyer or you were going to work in a coal mine or a mill, you would do the job that your forefathers had done. You very hardly had the opportunity, especially if you were a woman, but even the same if you were a man, to aspire to be anything other than what your forefathers had been. Now things have changed. You like to think that the future generation, the world is their oyster, but again, sadly, that is not the case. If anything, we've gone back in society to being more like how we would have been in the 1800s, 1900s, because we have such a large population now of people. They're just, nothing within society has caught up enough to cope with the amount of people that we now have on the planet. And for that reason, a lot of skilled jobs are being lost. People don't know how to do even the basics, like how to boil an egg or how to make a sandwich, because you don't need to know how to do these things. Because you can just go into your local convenience store or your local high street shop and they're on the shelf. You don't have to think to yourself, I need 2 slices of bread, maybe some butter, some salad, and some extra filling like cheese, ham. Or if I wanted to be a little bit adventurous, make a BLT, which for those who might not know what that is, a BLT is bacon, lettuce, and tomato. So it's a shame because one of the things that always seems to be readily available for people is books. Okay? 100 years ago, you couldn't afford a book. Books were only available to people if they had money, which is why bibliotheques or libraries, in a way, were invented to enable people, regardless of your age, your background, your religion, your creed, your color, whatever you want to call yourselves, to access books. But again, there were still issues where if you were a woman of a certain faith or religion or age or status, you weren't allowed to read. Reading was forbidden. If you were from an ethnic background, again, you were not allowed to go into certain parts of a library that were clearly marked white only. If you are black, you can only read these books. And again, it was so they had control on society. And that is what is happening with social media, and that is what is happening with the internet. They've actually said somewhere, I don't know where, there's actually been like a comment where they've said, anything now that is on social media, do not trust it, do not believe it. Because a lot of it is AI generated, and a lot of it, might not even be true. So I have always been a firm believer that you need to learn to read, you need to learn to write. Yes, if you struggle, like myself, having up-to-date technology or access to technology is fantastic. But read a book. I could go on social media today and I could put in herbs, and I would probably get in the search bar 1 billion search engines. Basically, I could write in herbs and there would be 1 billion results for that one specific word. So anything that people have now made into an algorithm, that have converted into something that can be read by a computer, by artificial intelligence, will come up. If I was to put in, if I just turn the page, let me just find something. Cultivating herbs. Again, there would probably be over 1 billion answers on social media for that word. But how much of what is on social media is true? How much of it is fact? How much of it is fiction? And